San Francisco, ever since the addition of Kyle Shanahan, has been known for having one of the more dominant defensive lines across the league. And this is really fueled by all the additions they make. Perhaps the biggest addition last year was acquiring Chase Young mid-season. And while he's been a great player, he's expecting to bring around $16 million per year on a new contract. Something that doesn't seem feasible, especially because San Francisco has better options available. The first that I personally would love to see is bringing back Clelin Ferrell. He's not as splashy as Young, but he's so consistent in the run game and surprisingly effective at getting to the quarterback. Personally, I think he's a better addition than Young. In addition to that, Ferrell's expected to receive a much cheaper contract than Young. Outside of bringing in a player, San Francisco might already have a Chase Young replacement on their roster, Robert Beal Jr. He's an absolute stud. This was their 5th round selection last year. He comes in at 6'4", 250 and runs his 40-yard dash in 4.48 seconds. He's an athletic freak San Francisco has been looking for. I'm not just saying that either. San Francisco loves players that can get off the ball quickly in their wide 9 system to really pressure opposing teams' quarterbacks. It's so important for San Francisco's wide 9 system. The scouting department, in combination with Chris Kasarik, came up with a metric to measure how quickly a player gets off the ball. They labeled it GTFO, and well, you probably guessed, Robert Beal Jr. was number 1 across his entire draft class. So for this video, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into Robert Beal Jr. and go over some of his notable plays for his rookie year, and then dive deeper into the player Robert Beal Jr. is overall. While Beal didn't receive too much playing time this year, it isn't uncommon, as Kyle Shanahan absolutely hates playing rookies and only does it if he's forced. Take Purdy for example. Kyle Shanahan said he was the best quarterback, but regardless of that, he put him behind Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo in part because of his experience. So with that out of the way, let's jump into his game film for his rookie year, starting out with the Washington Commanders. When San Francisco had drafted Robert Beal Jr., I didn't expect much out of his run defense, but he pleasantly surprised me this year. What I loved about this play specifically is how he set the edge and then flowed inwards to help bring down the running back. It's not just this play either. When RBJ received the opportunity to play this year, he was fantastic. Take this play when he slides over to set the edge when Carson Wentz is trying to read him, and this couldn't have been played better. He essentially played both Carson Wentz and the running back. Honestly, I've even seen Chase Young struggle with this, so with Beal being so aware at such a young age with limited experience, it's only promising for what's to come. It's not just in the run game where he exhibits a great amount of discipline, it's also the pass game. What I want to pay attention to here is how Robert Beal Jr. is fighting to keep Carson Wentz within the pocket. And while this is a PI, this is definitely the proper way to play this play. Carson Wentz is known as being one of the more mobile quarterbacks, so going into these games, Kyle Shanahan really designed it to have his defensive line contain these mobile quarterbacks. And on this play, Robert Beal Jr. executes that game plan to perfection. Outside of his crazy discipline, I also loved to see his hustle carry over from college. When I watched him in his college days, he would flow sideline to sideline and be making tackles all over the field. And so far with San Francisco, he seems to have a similar type of motor. Being a 5th round rookie, or really a rookie in general though, you can expect the rookie mistakes. But what I really love to see is how a player responds to these mistakes. And Robert might be one of the better players on San Francisco's roster at responding to them. And this isn't a hyperbole. He really reminds me of a guy like Brock Purdy. He'll make a mistake maybe once or twice, but then remedy it. Take this play for example. The Rams are going to fake a run to come back with a naked boot. The biggest issue with Robert Beal Jr. right here is not containing Carson Wentz. If he was able to get a contain on Carson Wentz, this would have easily been a sack or an incompletion. Unsurprisingly, the Rams went back to a similar type of concept, but watch how Robert Beal Jr. plays this. He has much better contain and gets the sack on Carson Wentz, and that's just because he realized what he did wrong the previous play. And this is the type of growth I'm looking for out of a rookie who I expect big things out of. This type of development within a game shows that Robert Beal Jr. could really fill into his athletic profile nicely, especially with Chris Kasarik, one of the best defensive line coaches across the entire NFL. And him getting more playing time towards the end of the year is a really good indicator of this. But even with his impressive rookie season, I still think there's a lot to learn about RBJ, specifically by examining his career up to this point and what scouts were saying, and really what type of player he was before entering San Francisco, to really gain a deeper insight into the player Robert Beal Jr. can become. And let me be honest, I think San Francisco might have gotten one of the biggest steals in this entire draft class. But before we get into his college career, we need to focus on his high school career. He attended Norcross High School before transferring to IMG as well as Peachridge. He was all over the place. And I mean that both in his location and on the football field. He would routinely get to quarterbacks in high school, and it would look like the offensive lineman didn't even have a chance. At times, he got off the ball so quickly, it looked like he was offsides, but under further review, he was just burning people. He wasn't just a pass rush specialist in high school though. He was one of the better run stuffers in the entire state. Whether it be a power or a read option, Bill was there to blow it up. And I wasn't the only one to notice an absolute freak on the field. Coming out, he was originally rated a 4-star recruit before being re-rated a 5-star recruit, and he had offers from Alabama, Florida State, North Carolina State, South Carolina State, Georgia, South Carolina, just to name a few. Ultimately, Bill did decide to commit to Georgia over these other offers. One of the biggest challenges for Bill entering Georgia was how deep their defensive line was, and it honestly took him a while to break into the deep defensive rotation. As a freshman, he did play in 11 games, had 15 tackles, and 1 sack. But the following year, in 2019, he played in just 6 games, and in 2020, just 7. Bill's first real opportunity to play consistently started in 2021, where he ended up leading the national champions with 6.5 sacks, 23 total tackles, 2 pass breakups in just 15 games. Following year, he played a vital role in helping repeat the national championship for the Bulldogs, having 26 tackles, 3 sacks, and just 15 appearances. So it's not like when you turn on the film, you're disappointed by what you see with Bill. It's more that when you turn on the film, there's just not too much of it. Despite his limited film though, scouts still dived into it after his final season with the Bulldogs and him entering the 2023 NFL Draft. Obviously, the first thing that stood out about Bill was his athletic profile. He comes in at 6'4", 250, running his 40-yard dash in 4.48 seconds, his 10-yard split in 1.62 seconds, and he has a wingspan of nearly 7 feet. In addition to that, he showed a great ability to attack blockers, then read the play to get great positioning. But because of his limited experience, he showed lack of a refinement at times as a pass rusher, but he flashed potential to do a lot more with his length and athletic profile. Essentially, you could put Bill as a high ceiling, low floor prospect. He's a moldable ball of clay, and that's just what San Francisco and Chris Kacerek saw in him when they drafted him in the 5th round, pick 38. Which brings us back to today, with Robert Beal Jr. having his first season under his belt with San Francisco. So going forward, what can we realistically expect out of him? For one, I'm expecting a lot. Every time he's received an opportunity in his career, he does a lot with it. And now entering Chris Kacerek's system, he has the opportunity to work with guys like Nick Bosa to really refine his craft. And eventually, he could be a great bookend opposite of Bosa. But ultimately, these are just my thoughts on Robert Beal Jr., and I'd like to hear your thoughts down below and which way you would like to replace a guy like Chase Young, or if you would like to bring him back. It would also mean a ton to me if you liked and subscribed. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.